Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight into it with the Daily Mail. And the BBC continue to maintain their rigorous impartiality standards. That was the joke there, Lewis.
Yes. This is the BBC broadcaster Clive Myrie, who I don't really know because I don't watch the BBC and I don't even know why I'm... Can I get out of not paying my license fee? Clive Myrie pulled from News at 10 over fears Boris Johnson jibes on Have I Got News for You could, quote, spark impartiality row. Or is it a row? Row.
It is row, yeah.
It is row. And what it says is that the host, Myrie, who was the host of Have I Got News for You, was actually scheduled, it was double dipping. He was doing the news. It's like when we do two programs at once. He had to go do the news at 10. But meanwhile, at 9, he's like making jokes about Boris Johnson. So there's a question of impartiality. You know the British people. Because when they had only one channel, they needed it to be totally impartial between the left and the right, between Labour, the Lib Dems, and the Tories. So they had to make it seem like everybody was completely impartial. Now there are 1 million channels, and they don't need to do that anymore. So they told this guy, Clive Myrie, that you can't do the news at 10.
I'd like to see the impartiality row, actually, like a Cambridge boat race. Whoever wins it gets to control the agenda of the BBC. But this poll, actually, just to defend the BBC, which I will do from time to time, I'm very fair, this doesn't seem that bad to me. They had concerns that Clive was doing two very different types of programme within an hour of each other, which could be a bit odd. You're doing a comedy show, then you're doing the serious news. And the problem with it is, once you're doing a load of jokes about Boris Johnson, you can't then say, and now I'm talking seriously about Boris Johnson in a neutral way. It doesn't. But, of course, the flaw of it is we all know what the BBC really believe, and we've seen people like Emily Maitlis when she leaves, and she tells her real views, and lo and behold, they're exactly the views we thought. Or was it Martine Croxall who got in trouble for laughing at the idea of Boris going? So, and BBC Verify, which is just an absurd propaganda service. So, although this makes some sense, they're not really fooling anyone. Sorry, Paul, bit of a rant.
No, absolutely. And I do agree with you. You know, there's two things going on here. You've got to be able to have satire, OK? And if you're going to... Whoever's presenting the satire show is allowed to be satirical about what's going on. And that's all I saw there. Made some pretty funny stuff. Boris was the butt of the joke. I mean, I'm a comedian, you're a comedian. Lewis is a doctor. We should be able to do that. I don't have any issue with Clive doing that. It's amusing to me because the BBC have made a rod for their own back. The rod is impartiality. It doesn't exist. They are not impartial. They need to stop pretending that they are. Or someone like Clive Myrie cannot go on Have I Got News for You, which would be a shame.
But they haven't made a rod for their own back. They haven't. The fact is that the BBC is in a very bad position because they're the state propaganda network pretending to be all things to all people, when the truth is they represent the deep, deep, deep state. Once upon a time, they represented the kings and the queens of this country. Now they represent the World Economic Forum. You know what it is?
Plenty of fresh meat for Twitter there, Lewis.
Yeah, you know what? The BBC is the worst thing about this country.
OK. Do you know what?
Am I allowed to say that?
You can say that, I suppose. We should address the elephant in the room, which, of course, Lewis, the trouble you got in was because you were saying something and people said, well, that's very serious. But I think that's different because a couple of reasons. One, you're a comedian and that's been your life for many years, probably your whole life. Yeah. And we're all billed as comedians on here. That's what the show is. We've all done years of comedy for our sins. The other thing is that the BBC has the licence fee and has to be impartial, whereas actually GB isn't claiming to be. But if the analogy was fair, it'd be like Lewis does all his stuff he says on this show about meat and blood pressure and water doesn't exist or something, and then he goes on it, and now the serious news with Lewis, and a half an hour later, and it would be a bit weird, but we're not doing that.
But why can't I do that? It's like The Guardian. They print a massive amount of misinformation, as all newspapers do. The Telegraph does their own misinformation. But there shouldn't be a government agency telling The Guardian that they have to print, you know, an anti-climate change thing.
I got it.